Shadows over Plain Country, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Chapter 1. The Call from Leola, Lancaster City Police Department. Monday, 5:47 in the morning. Detective Cole Harlan had been awake since 4, which was not unusual. Sleep had become a negotiation since his wife left, a thin treaty between exhaustion and the ceiling fan's slow, indifferent turning. He was on his second cup of coffee when the desk phone rattled against its cradle, and something in the pitch of that ring told him the day was not going to be ordinary. He picked up. Harlan. Sergeant Marta Delgado's voice came through clipped and flat, the way it got when she was working hard not to show anything. "We have a missing juvenile out in Leola. Amish family. The girl is 9 years old. The father says she was in the barn for morning chores just before 5, and when the older boy went to fetch her, the barn door was open and she was gone." Cole set down his mug slowly, the ceramic clicking against the oak of his desk. 9 years old. Amish. In Leola, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where the roads still had the names the settlers gave them, and the sky over the farmland was a different color than the sky over the city. Softer, heavier, like it was carrying something. "Name?" he asked. "Rebecca Stoltzfus. Father is Eli Stoltzfus. Farm is on Hollander Road, just east of the village. Cole, she has been gone at least an hour by the time the father called the neighbor, who called us." That is a long head start. He was already reaching for his jacket. In Lancaster County, when an Amish child went missing, the entire weight of two worlds pressed down on you at once. The plain world, with its silence and its stubborn dignity, and the English world with its databases and its urgency. Cole Harlan had grown up straddling both. His grandmother had been Mennonite. He knew how to take his hat off in a farmhouse and how to look a man in the eye without making it a contest. He grabbed his badge off the nightstand, clipped his service weapon to his hip, and was in the car before the coffee had stopped steaming. Detective's notes, case number LC 2847. Victim, Rebecca Stoltzfus, age 9. Location of disappearance, Hollander Road Farm, Leola, Pennsylvania. Time last seen, approximately 4:55 in the morning. Weather, overcast, 48 degrees, light ground fog. No screaming was reported. The dog did not raise an alarm. Possible known suspect. Chapter 2. The Hollow Barn. Stoltzfus Farm, Hollander Road, Leola, 6:22 in the morning. The Stoltzfus farm materialized out of the fog, like a painting left unfinished. White clapboard house, dark shutters, the white fenced pasture catching the first gray light. 2 black buggies stood motionless by the barn, their horses long since unhitched and returned to the stable. A cluster of plain-dressed neighbors, bonnets and broad-brimmed hats, stood near the fence line. Not clustered in panic, but in that quiet Amish way of gathering, as if they were already preparing to endure. Eli Stoltzfus was waiting on the porch. He was perhaps 40, broad-shouldered, his beard dark and trimmed in the traditional way, full on the jaw, clean on the upper lip. His eyes were the eyes of a man who had already had the worst thought and was now waiting for someone to tell him it was not true. "You are the detective," he said. It was not a question. "Eli, I am Cole Harlan. I need you to take me through everything, in order. Do not skip anything you think is small." The barn was large and smelled of hay and lanolin and animals. Cole moved through it carefully, gloves already on. The morning chores bucket, a battered aluminum pail, sat overturned near the second stall. The milk cow, a large brown Guernsey, was restless and unmilked, shifting her weight. That told Cole something. Rebecca had started the milking and stopped suddenly, in the middle of the task. This was not a child who had run away. Children who ran away finished what they were doing first, or left the bucket by the door. This bucket was in the middle of the barn floor, turned over, the small metal scoop a few feet away. Cole crouched beside the scoop. On the dirt floor near the barn's side door, the smaller door that opened toward the neighboring cornfield, he found 2 sets of prints. One small, shallow, and thin-soled. One larger, heavier, a boot or shoe with a distinctive tread. The larger prints showed weight on the balls of the feet, not the heels. Someone moving fast, someone carrying something. He stepped through the side door into the cornfield edge. The stalks from last season were still standing, broken and brown, rattling softly in the morning wind. 60 feet in, he found it. A small white prayer covering snagged on a dry cornstalk, as if it had been pulled loose in the passage. He photographed it, without touching it. Then he straightened, looked down the row of old cornstalks toward the far field edge, and saw where it ended, the shoulder of Old Leola Road. A car had been parked on the road shoulder. The grass was pressed flat in two parallel tracks, narrow-wheeled. A passenger car, not a truck. Cole photographed the impressions and called them in to Delgado. As the sun crept above the horizon and burned thin strips of gold through the fog, Cole Harlan stood at the edge of the cornfield, the child's prayer covering bagged in his hand, and felt the clock ticking, like a second heartbeat. Detective's notes. Footprint analysis. The larger boot was approximately men's size 10 to 11, with a distinctive tread. Worn at the center, intact at the heel. This was not a work boot. Possibly a theatrical or dress shoe, which is unusual in farmland. Direction of travel was northwest toward Old Leola Road. Evidence recovered included one white child's prayer covering. Vehicle tread impressions matched a narrow passenger car. Eli Stoltzfus stated that Rebecca did not know any English men, but that she had mentioned a man who watched from the road the previous week. He had a red car. Chapter 3. The English World. Route 30 Corridor and Lancaster City. 8:15 in the morning. The thing about Lancaster County that outsiders never quite understood was how small the distances were and how large the differences. You could drive 10 minutes east on Route 30, the Lincoln Highway, old as the country itself, and move from a world without electricity into a gas station with 24 pumps and a touchscreen menu. Cole had grown up making that transition without thinking about it, but this morning it felt like a border crossing. He pulled into the state police barracks on Rockville Road and ran the tire impressions through the regional vehicle database with Corporal Lisa Fenn, a sharp, spare woman who had worked county crimes for 11 years. The tire model was common, but combined with the narrow wheelbase, it indicated a compact or mid-size sedan. Red, based on Eli Stoltzfus's account of a man watching from the road. Cole put out a bulletin through the county sheriff's network. Red compact or mid-size sedan, possible suspect in juvenile abduction, Lancaster County. While Fenn ran the database, Cole went back to the boot print. He kept thinking about it. Farmers wore Red Wings, work boots, mud boots. Hunters wore lace-ups with aggressive lugs. This tread, smooth at the center, intact at the heel, almost like a stage shoe or a character shoe, was the footwear of someone who spent time on hard floors, not fields. "Who comes out to Leola in dress shoes at 5 in the morning?" Fenn said, reading his mind over the evidence photos. "Someone who does not live there," Cole said. "Someone passing through, or coming from somewhere specific, or someone with a reason to be on that road." Cole thought about the farm's position on Hollander Road, which fed onto Old Leola Road, which connected to Route 772, a winding two-lane that threaded through the county's most scenic terrain, covered bridges, roadside stands, the gentle swells of farmland that drew the tourists. The tourist routes were also the routes the county's arts community used. People who drove out from Lancaster City on weekends to sketch, photograph, and perform in outdoor summer productions. Performers knew this county like a stage set. The word landed in his mind and stayed there. Performers. He checked the time. 8:41 in the morning. Rebecca Stoltzfus had been missing for nearly 4 hours. Every minute the trail cooled. But something was warming underneath, an instinct moving beneath the surface of the evidence like a current under ice. Detective's notes. Cross-reference query. Performing arts organizations, Lancaster County. The Fulton Theater in Lancaster City is active, with rehearsals ongoing. Of actor and crew vehicles registered in the county, 9 were red. 4 were red compact or mid-size sedans. Note, the shoe tread found at the scene is consistent with character shoes used in theatrical performance. Chapter 4. The Man at the Bridge. Bitzer's Mill-Covered Bridge, Upper Leacock Township, 9:55 in the morning. The tip came from a woman named Carol Byler, who ran a roadside quilt stand on Route 772 near the Bitzer's Mill-Covered Bridge. She had called the sheriff's non-emergency line at 9:20 to say she had seen a red car, a sporty little hatchback, parked at the pull-off by the covered bridge at sunrise. It was unusual because the tourist season was still weeks off. The man who got out had walked down toward the creek and then back up, she said, and then driven off quickly heading east toward the village of Bird in Hand. Cole had the call routed to him within minutes. He was at the bridge pull-off by 9:55, walking the gravel edge where Carol Byler said the car had sat. He found the tire tracks easily in the soft gravel shoulder. Same narrow wheelbase, same tire model. And beside them, in the mud at the drainage edge, the same boot print. Size 10 to 11, smooth center tread. He walked down to the creek. Bitzer's Mill Creek ran cold and fast under the bridge, the red-painted wooden span framing the view like a theater proscenium. Cole stood on the bank and looked around. Nothing disturbed in the brush. No sign of a struggle. The man had come here and stood, perhaps looking, perhaps thinking, then left. There was something left behind, though, half buried in the soft mud near the waterline. Cole pulled on a fresh glove and retrieved it. A folded playbill, damp but legible. He opened it carefully. The Fulton Theater. The Phantom of the Opera. Regional production. Season schedule. Cast list. Subscriber information. On the back cover, someone had written in black marker, Act 2, Basement Scene, Thursday. Today was Monday. Cole stared at those words for a long time in the cold morning air. The creek moved past indifferently. A red-winged blackbird called twice from the cattails and went quiet. Detective's notes. Evidence item 4. Fulton Theater playbill for The Phantom of the Opera. Handwritten annotation reads, Act 2, Basement Scene, Thursday. The Fulton Theater's physical structure includes a documented historic basement used for storage and technical operations. The building was constructed in 1852 and is a National Historic Landmark. Red vehicle. A Honda Civic hatchback, approximately 2019 to 2022. A partial plate was visible in the tire mud impression, the letters K and 7. Cole was already on the phone with Delgado before he reached the car. Pull the vehicle registrations on all Fulton Theater employees and cast members. Red Honda Civic hatchback, partial plate K7. And get me a contact at the theater. Stage manager, artistic director, anyone. Cole, you think this is a theater person? Delgado asked. I think, he said, starting the engine, this is someone who lives in two worlds, same as everyone in this county. I just need to find which world he hid her in. Chapter 5. The Winding Road East. Bird in hand. Intercourse. Strasburg. 11:30 in the morning. The red Honda Civic moved through the county like a ghost. Glimpsed, reported, vanished. Cole pieced the route together from 3 separate sightings called in after the Amber Alert went wide. A gas station attendant in bird in hand who had watched it pull in and pull out without stopping at a pump. A woman in intercourse who had seen it parked for 20 minutes outside the Amish Farmstead Experience Tourist Center. The driver sitting inside without getting out. And a state trooper on Route 30 who had clocked it eastbound at 11:10, heading toward Strasburg. Cole drove each of these points in sequence, mapping the route in his notebook the way he had done for 15 years. The old way, hand and ink, because paper did not lose signal in the hollow valleys of the eastern county. The route made a rough arc through the heart of Amish country, Leola to Bird in Hand to Intercourse to Strasburg, a surveying route. A route someone might drive if they were checking something, making sure of something, or killing time while waiting for a plan to unfold. At the Strasburg Railroad parking lot, a security camera caught the vehicle at 11:23 in the morning, the partial plate visible red, KP7. Cole ran it through the Department of Motor Vehicles, with the Civic model and red color as filters. It came back within 4 minutes. The car was registered to Daniel Marsh, age 34, of a North Queen Street apartment in Lancaster City. No criminal record. One prior, a disorderly conduct citation from 3 years ago, which was dismissed. Listed occupation on his DMV record, actor, theater arts. Cole pulled up everything on Marsh in the county system while he drove, member of the Fulton Theater Company for 6 years. A secondary listing showed him as a volunteer with a county youth arts program. The youth arts program ran workshops twice a year in partnership with several Plain community schools as part of an outreach initiative to introduce Amish and Mennonite youth to the performing arts. That was the connection. That was how Rebecca Stoltzfus had known him well enough to walk out of the barn without screaming. He pressed the accelerator and turned the nose of the car back west, toward Lancaster City, where the Fulton Theater's limestone facade waited on Prince Street, patient and dark. Its stage empty, in the midday quiet. Detective's notes, suspect identified. Daniel Marsh, age 34. Address: 301 North Queen Street, Lancaster City. Red Honda Civic, plate KP7, 4882. Occupation: actor, Fulton Theater. Connection to victim: Youth Arts Outreach Program at Plain Community Schools. Psychiatric flag: none on record. However, a neighbor report from 2022 references erratic hours, long absences, and an obsessive interest in Amish culture. Status: at large. Chapter 6. Prince Street. Fulton Theater, 12 North Prince Street, Lancaster City, 1:17 in the afternoon. The Fulton Theater was the oldest continuously operating theater in the United States. That was the fact they put on every program, every press release, every building plaque. Built in 1852 on the site of an earlier hall, its federal-style facade looked out over Prince Street with the serene authority of a building that had outlasted everything the century had thrown at it. Wars, floods, depressions, the slow erosion of the arts themselves in a country that kept forgetting why they mattered. Cole had been inside twice, once for a school trip in 7th grade, and once 3 years ago when a lighting technician had fallen from a catwalk and the question of whether it was an accident needed answering. He knew the bones of the building: the grand lobby, the orchestra and balcony, the ornate proscenium, and below all of it, the basement. A labyrinthine warren of storage rooms, costume vaults, mechanical spaces, and the original cellar that predated even the 1852 structure. The artistic director was a woman named Patricia Voss, small and precise, who met Cole in the lobby with the wariness of someone who had had bad news delivered in good rooms before. "Daniel Marsh," Cole said, and showed her the photo from the DMV. Voss's face shifted. "Daniel has not been at rehearsals since Friday. We thought he was ill. He has been going through something. He became very fixated on a project he described as living research. He said he wanted to write a one-man show about the Amish community. Does he have access to the building when it is not in production?" She hesitated 1 second too long. Cole said her name quietly, just once. "He has a key," she said. "Cast members with lead roles receive building keys for the run of the show. We have not changed the locks yet." Cole called for backup: 2 Lancaster City units, a county sheriff's deputy, and a K-9 team. He instructed Voss to have the building's floor plan ready. While he waited the 4 minutes it took them to arrive, he stood in the Fulton lobby and looked at the portraits of performers lining the walls, decades of faces gazing out from behind glass. He thought of Rebecca Stoltzfus and the bucket overturned in the middle of the barn floor, and the small prayer covering snagged on a dead cornstalk, and the word her father had used in his quiet, dignified voice. She was a good girl, very curious about the world. The units arrived. Cole briefed them in 60 seconds. They went in. Theater floor plan. Key areas: ground floor, lobby, box office, green room, stage level, main stage, wings, fly space, below stage, trap room, prop storage. Basement level 1, costume vault, mechanical room, scene shop. Basement level 2, the historic cellar. This is the original 1820 cellar, used for long-term storage with limited access. Accessible via stairs behind the scene shop. 1 entrance, no exterior egress. Chapter 7. Below the stage. Fulton Theater, basement levels, 1:44 in the afternoon. They cleared the upper floors fast. Stage, wings, fly loft, orchestra pit, green room, nothing. The K-9, a Belgian Malinois named Decker, had been given the scent from Rebecca's prayer covering. On the ground floor he moved through the lobby without a signal. In the scene shop, he stopped. His handler, Officer Bev Krause, watched the dog's posture shift, the subtle stiffening, the nose dropping to the floor and then lifting to the air, reading layers. Decker turned toward the back wall of the scene shop, where a heavy wooden door sat behind a rack of hanging flat pieces, painted landscapes of rolling hills, covered bridges, an Amish farm, stage scenery. Someone had used this county's face as a backdrop. Cole moved the flat pieces aside himself. Behind them, the door, padlocked from the outside. But the padlock was one of the old barrel locks, and the metal plate it hung from had been recently reinstalled. The screws were bright and new in old wood. Someone had put this lock here recently. Someone who wanted to be able to leave and lock the door behind them. The deputy had bolt cutters in the vehicle. 2 minutes. The padlock fell. The stairs descended steeply into the smell of old stone, dust, damp plaster, and beneath it all, something else. A smell that did not belong to basements. Food. Cole recognized it immediately. Peanut butter. The specific smell of cheap peanut butter crackers, the kind you bought from a vending machine or kept in a grocery bag for a child. He went down first, hand on his weapon, the tactical flashlight cutting through the dark. The cellar was large, roughly 30 feet by 40, with brick arches supporting the ceiling. Old shelving lined the walls, stacked with dusty props, fabric bolts, and wooden crates. In the far corner, behind a folded stage flat propped against the wall to create a makeshift screen, the flashlight found a cot, a sleeping bag, a grocery bag, a battery-powered lantern, turned off, a coloring book, open to a half-finished page. And on the cot, curled small under the sleeping bag, her knees drawn to her chest, her brown hair loose without the prayer covering, her eyes wide and frightened in the sudden light, was Rebecca Stoltzfus. "Rebecca," Cole said, and he kept his voice exactly the way his grandmother had taught him to speak. Quiet, steady, warm. He holstered the weapon before she could see it. "My name is Cole. Your dad sent me. You are safe. I have got you." She looked at him for a long, searching moment, the way children do when they are deciding whether a stranger is safe. Then she sat up, and in a small, clear, composed voice that nearly broke him, she said, "I knew someone would come. I prayed, and I knew." He crossed the cellar in 6 strides and knelt beside the cot. Kraus was already on the radio calling it in. Decker sat at the bottom of the stairs like a sphinx. His job done. Cole wrapped the sleeping bag around the girl's shoulders and walked her to the stairs. Above them, the theater waited. The stage, the seats, the empty house. Below them, the old stone of a building that had stood for 170 years, holding whatever secrets the city passed through it. Chapter 8. The Curtain Falls. Lancaster City. The arrest. 2:30 in the afternoon. Daniel Marsh was found less than a mile away, sitting in his red Honda Civic in the parking garage on Water Street, engine running, a notebook open in his lap. He was writing in it when the officers surrounded the car. Writing in a cramped, urgent hand, filling pages the way a man fills pages when he believes he is making something important. He did not resist. He looked up at the officers with an expression Cole would think about for a long time afterward. Not guilt, not defiance, but a kind of bewildered sincerity, as if he genuinely did not understand why the world was not receiving what he had done as the gift he had intended it to be. Cole read him his rights on the parking garage ramp. Marsh listened, without blinking. "She was safe," Marsh said, when Cole finished. "I was never going to hurt her. I just needed to understand, to document. The Amish world is disappearing, and no one sees it. I wanted to give it a voice." Cole looked at him for a moment. "She is 9 years old," he said. "She spent 10 hours in a basement alone." Marsh's expression finally broke. Not into guilt, exactly, but into something messier. He looked at his notebook. He looked at his hands. The performance had finally ended. The notebook, taken into evidence, contained 47 pages of detailed observations about Rebecca's behavior and speech during the hours of her captivity, the way she hummed hymns to herself, the German words she used, her patient, steady dignity in frightening circumstances. In the margins were draft notes for a one-man show. None of it would ever be performed. All of it would be entered as evidence in a criminal case that the Lancaster County District Attorney would describe at the press conference 3 days later as a profound violation dressed up as artistic curiosity. Daniel Marsh was charged with kidnapping in the first degree, false imprisonment, and endangering the welfare of a child. He was remanded to Lancaster County Prison without bail. Case closure notes. Detective Cole Harlan. Suspect, Daniel Marsh, age 34. Actor, no prior violent history. Motivation, delusional research project for a theatrical one-man show. Victim, Rebecca Stoltzfus. Found safe, no physical injuries. Transferred to Lancaster General Hospital for evaluation and released the same day. Duration of captivity, approximately 9 hours and 40 minutes. Key evidence, playbill with annotation, boot impressions, tire tracks, theater key, and suspect notebook. Case status, closed, arrest made. Chapter 9. Evening on Hollander Road. Stoltzfus Farm, Leola. Dusk. Cole drove out to Leola that evening, though he did not have to. The paperwork was filed, the case was with the district attorney, Rebecca was home. There was no official reason to make the drive. He made it anyway. The farm looked different in the late afternoon light. Softer, the fog long burned away, the sky over the fields a deep amber that had no equivalent in the city. The white clapboard house caught the last of it and held it. Smoke rose from the chimney in a thin, straight line. The farm was exactly what it had been that morning, and yet everything had changed inside it. Eli Stoltzfus met him at the gate. He was a man of few words. Cole had learned that in the first hour of the morning, but what he said, he meant. "She is inside," Eli said. "She ate 3 bowls of soup. She is telling her mother about the coloring book she found." Cole almost smiled. "That sounds right," he said. Eli looked at him steadily. "You brought her back." "I found her," Cole said. "She got herself through the hard part." They stood together at the gate for a moment. The Amish farmer and the city detective, 2 men from the same county and different centuries, watching the sun go down over the same fields that had been there before either of them was born. "Will you come in?" Eli asked. "There is soup." Cole thought about the desk waiting for him back at the precinct, the paperwork, the coffee gone cold. He thought about the ceiling fan and the thin treaty he had been making with sleep. "I will," he said. "Thank you." They went inside. Through the kitchen window, lamplight, real lamplight, oil and flame, made warm gold rectangles on the darkening grass. From somewhere inside the house came the sound of a child's voice, animated, describing something. Then laughter. The old kind. The kind that does not need electricity. Cole Harlan sat down at the Stoltzfus table and let the county hold him for a while. End of story. Shadows over Plain Country. A Detective Cole Harlan mystery. Lancaster, Pennsylvania.